Hey guys, I have no idea how to do an intro, so... Aloha! Yep, that's me. I know I'm a little dense, but trust. Anyway, let's start the video. First, let's talk about the stats. After the update, Hawkeye now has a new set of tripod options to increase its damage and speed instead of crit rate. Meter generation spells are also coming back stronger than ever, and wealth runes will also be fully equipable on all of them. The meter generation on these spells are so strong that even with 0 spec investment and level 4 tripods, you get all the gauge that you need. Due to this, you can now stack full critical rate and get swiftness in excess from your necklace and bracelet for smoother gameplay. Spec Op stat is also a completely viable build, and it boasts higher burst damage in given moments, with the trade-off being somewhat slower. The golden number you want to aim for on Deathstrike will be 1817, and quite frankly, any amount of swiftness works. The swift is more of a bonus, really, if anything. So, why 1817? Is there any particular reason for this? No, not really. I just wanted to sound smart. Getting 1817 crit will set you up perfectly for any kind of build you plan to play, allowing you to achieve that 100% critical rate goal for Deathstrike. But Tofu, what if I can't get 1817? Is it doomed? Is it unplayable? Are you poor? Huh? No money to buy accessory. I'm just kidding. No, it's not. No, it's not doomed. Missing a bit of crit rate would just mean you can't hit the 100% by however much you lost from the 65% mark. So for example, if you get 64%, you'll be at 99, and 63, 98%, so on and so forth. That said, in order to even get 100% on the Keen Blunt Weapon Hallucination build, you need a bracelet with 2% crit increase. So 65% from personal crit rate, 5% from adrenaline 1, 28% from hallucination 28% from hallucination set level 3, and the last 2% comes from your bracelet, giving you a total of 100, or from your party member if they have it. Bracelets might now seem like a little bit of a concern here, but don't worry about them really, and just focus on the core stat, which is your crit rate. To simplify it, prioritize your crit stat in any sort of damage rolls you get. Swiftness and spec are really on the smaller side of things considering everything else. So even if your bracelet doesn't have those stats like crit or spec, it's still very strong if you can roll damage rolls like Hammer, for instance, or Fervor. Here's an example of 2 of mine. One of them is even a mana regen crit roll that you can probably find on the market for cheap. Hopefully. Maybe not after this video though. Alright, let's move on to Engravings. Speaking of Engravings, there are 2 best performing builds as of right now, and you have the Keen Blunt Weapon 3, Adrenaline 1, and the Adrenaline 3 Filler 1 build, or just simply Adrenaline 3. But everyone wants to know which does the most damage, right? That's what everyone wants. Highest DPS, blah blah blah. ABW build still hits the highest and goes even more crazier when paired with a Lance Master. The build is also very flexible, allowing you to swap the Salvation set when you have 2 crit synergies for 90% critical rate. Now, what about the Adrenaline 3? This build does not fall behind much at all compared to Keen Blunt Weapon, even though it has a 80% base crit rate value. That said, even with the right team comp, it can do extremely well despite showing lesser Trixion numbers compared to a KBW build, for instance. One concern I know some people have is they can't replace Keen Blunt Weapon. Maybe it's a stone or in their learned books, and that's completely fine. You can just drop Curse Doll or, well, Hitmaster and still expect a somewhat decent performance, although it's going to be more heavier on the RNG. With that said, the best in slot build that is undeniably unbeatable for a 5x3 setup. Same with the hell mode settings is still the Adrenaline Tree build. Nothing even comes close to how strong or how much value Adrenaline Tree provides for a 5x3 setup. A budget alternative though can be Precision Dagger, I guess, but it's still a damage loss, but not like a really horrible one at that. Now for the set effects of the build. This is extremely simple to explain. What set you wear is situational, just based on two factors. One, your total individual crit rate and the party synergy, just these two things. So here are some examples. I have 65% from my base crit rate. I have another 5% from Adrenaline, 2.1 from Bracelet. I'm partying up with a Lensmaster and a Warlord. So here I will go Hallucination for 28% crit and hit the 100% total crit rate on something. Yeah. Now what if I run with Arcana and an Aeromancer? Well, easy. Swap to Salvation set and you get 90 to 92% total crit rate from your party. For builds such as Adrenaline Tree, you will always pretty much run Salvation set, since Halu will overcap your stats if your stats are built really well. That's it. Everyone has very different setups for crit and bracelet rolls. So the important part is to just remember the two factors: individual crit and party synergy. This way you can build around any sort of situation, depending on your own unique setup. Now for the spicy part, elixirs, okay? This is basically the end game of Korea as of right now, and some of you already know that a crit rate elixir exists somewhere in this guy's house.
Hey! I told you so, bitch. You better get. Oh no.
That elixir isn't bad, but its values offered are very awkward to try and fit into Hawkeye's kit. Now the reason for that is because the crit rate from this elixir is 7%, which makes it rather difficult to match with crit synergies or potentially locks you into a one crit sin only party. Instead, there is already an elixir that synergizes extremely well with SS and provides ease of setup as well. This is none other than the 12% damage increase upon critical hit elixir. This is by far the best in slot and gives you your highest amount of damage for investment, you know, money, shit like that. Next up, we have the skill tree. Fortunately, this is very straightforward. You can just copy what you see on the screen. And as for tripods, Snipe is a given that you want maxed out first because, well, Snipe. Yeah, and it got buffed the fuck up. The Silver Master spells are a common concern, and don't worry, they can be left at level 4. Even with 600 Swift and level 10 cooldowns, you can just barely get the identity back in time. And if you do want to get a level 5 Silver Master spell, Moving Slash is the most important one to have it on first out of the tree because it's being incorporated in both meter generation techniques for Hawkshot and Deadly Slash. And then you can get the other two later on, slowly down the line. Okay, I know some people have seen a Bladestorm build going around on Loa, right? Where they replace Arrow Wave with Bladestorm. Now, this build also works fine, but it is more conditional and often not worth running due to its longer animation and full hit condition. Arrow Wave is just a much more practical and flexible skill to use, given its quick animation and range. Now, gems. Gems, this will be displayed on screen again, and this is the upside for keeping Arrow Wave, is that you can use the gem setup for both Loyal Companion and Deathstrike if you have the build set up on your Hawkeye. This also more or less tells you which tripods to get first for DPS. This also more or less tells you which tripods to get first for DPS. A key note though is that charging shot doing good damage is very dependent on the player and critical rate, so two factors. You have to spam it as much as possible since it has the lowest cooldowns and the fastest tap animation for your DPS. Basically, good positioning, good usage, high DPS. Bad positioning, low usage, low DPS. Okay, now let's take a look at how this class plays. Deathstrike is now more positional heavier than ever, with Snipe being a longer hold and a meter building system similar to Lunar Reaper in the sense that they're using the mobility spell to get meter but applying a 8-second debuff on the boss to increase your damage dealt instead of empowering a singular spell like Reaper or Striker. Now, Moving Slash is on a 6-second cooldown and is used to generate meter always. So you can probably already imagine how much you're going to be dashing onto the boss. This is what makes Deathstrike feel more like a melee class than, a ranged one. So what are some tips and tricks that can help you out with this? Let's go over the first one, right? Knowing how the class plays now and what to expect, here are some game-changing tips will help give you a larger perspective on the class. Number 1, Moving Slash placement. When using Moving Slash, don't think of only dashing into the boss, but instead sliding or gliding around the boss's sides and taking mini steps after a well-aimed snipe will put your character in a good spot to do uninterrupted damage, which is key to Hawkeye's damage dealing. Number 2, charging shot and snipe cooldown. There are going to be multiple instances where snipe and charging shots cooldown are going to overlap with one another. They're going to come out at the same time basically. Knowing this, it's important to preemptively position your character near the boss to do a melee charge shot and follow up with a snipe immediately after. Doing this allows all 4 hits of charge shot to land on the boss and saves you time as well. Number 3, adrenaline buildup. Big tip for new SS players, okay? ZX is 3 stack. Summoning the Hawk gives you 1, the Wings of Storm gives you 1, Last Rush gives you another. It's a total of 3. So Atomic Arrow, Moving Slash, ZZX, and the next ability will be guaranteed to get the 6 stack. Since Moving Slash is also going to be used on a 6-second cooldown, you can also use it to maintain adrenaline when needed. Number 4, this one is more of a QOL and was a massive change for me, especially for reprogging, guardian raids, hell modes, okay? All you need to do is make a new preset. Equip 6-piece Dominion, level 3 Awakening from books 9+9, right? You can just get the epic ones and equip a full set of swiftness accessories. Now at the start of every fight, what you're going to do is just full charge of Fenrir and swap back to your main preset. For me, I have my Awakening set on Control D and I swap back to my main set, which is Control S. This is especially great for doing Guardians since the cooldown is also short enough, allowing you to Awakening again in the fight for damage and gives you an amazing startup. Hey, this is awkward, but that pretty much covers everything you mostly need to know about Hawkeye's new and improved Deathstrike. So hopefully this helps. Thanks for watching. Bye.